Hey guys, it's Dr. Pickling from Own It Dental. As always, here's my contact information if you need to get a hold of me. And if you guys are enjoying these videos, please do hit that thumbs up button. It's right down below. It only takes you a second, and I trust you know where it is. Speaking of trust, today we're going to talk about building trust. So let's dig into it. All right, like I said, today we're going to talk about building trust. In the last couple of videos, we talked about the awareness and concern quadrants, and then we talked about the objections in dentistry. There's only 4 of them, and we talked about how to deal with those. Let me grab my pointer here. We talked about the 4 quadrants in dentistry, and these patients up here, they're already going to tend to say yes to treatment. The patients down here are going to tend to say no to treatment. And when we educate them and inform them and talk at them and raise their dental IQ, all we're doing is we're moving them this way. So these patients were saying no, and now they're still saying no. And these patients were saying yes, now they're still saying yes. So educating and informing only moves them this way on the quadrant. We need to move them this way. We need to move them up. We need to raise their level of concern, but there's something stopping them from doing that, and that's called the objection. And as we know, the objection is an emotional objection. And like I said, there's only 4 of them in dentistry. We talked about money, fear, time, and trust. And I think the trust is the big one. If you're open 6 or 7 days a week, time really shouldn't be an issue because you're already open more than anybody else. And then fear and money, those can be real objections. I think money's kind of a fake objection, but it can be a real objection. But we talked about how to get over those as well. First, you anticipate them. Here they are. You validate them. You're right. It is expensive. It is scary. And then you eliminate them. And you do that with a what-if scenario. But like I said, I think trust is one of the biggest objections in dentistry, and the way that we overcome it is a few ways. And one of the ways that we're going to talk about today is empathy. Fuck me. And there's another book out there called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Chris Voss was a former FBI hostage negotiator. And hostage negotiators, they can't have a 50% case acceptance rate. If a hostage taker says, we've got 10 hostages and we want $10 million for the release, he can't go, well, how about I give you $5 million and you keep 5, you release 5 and you keep 5 of the hostages, right? A 50% case acceptance for hostage negotiators, no good. So one of the tactics that Chris Voss used in order to get the hostages released and get the terrorists to listen to him is something that he called tactical empathy. What he would do is he would try to listen to the terrorists and understand their perspective. I didn't say he agreed with their perspective, but he tried to understand their perspective. What was their grievance? What was the thing that they really wanted? And then he made sure that those terrorists knew that he understood and felt what they felt. Again, I didn't say he agreed with them, but he did make sure that they knew that he could see the world through their eyes, not necessarily his eyes. And another thing that he didn't do is he didn't wag his finger saying, if you don't do it, this is gonna happen. Like we do as dentists. If you don't get this done, the tooth is gonna break, or you're gonna need a root canal. He didn't do that. He saw the world through their perspective and let them know that he saw the world through their perspective. And in doing so, he gained their trust. And in doing so, the steps after that were he would get 100% case acceptance. And we can transition this into dentistry. So like I said, he used something that he called tactical empathy. And empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. In other words, it's your ability to put yourself into somebody else's shoes. As dentists, when we're talking at patients and educating them and informing them and raising their dental IQ, what are we trying to do? We're trying to put them into our shoes. We're trying to give them our level of understanding. And that's the exact opposite of empathy. We need to put ourselves in their shoes, knowing what dentistry needs to be done, and try to fit the dentistry into their lives. So empathy is a Greek word meaning meaning in, and pathy meaning pathos or disease. So in other words, we need to put ourselves in the patient's disease, or better yet, put ourselves in their shoes. So like I said, when instead of us trying to put the patients in our shoes, we need to put ourselves in their position and then figure out how do we get the dentistry to work for them. And when patients see that you're being empathetic, that you understand their perspective, the reason why they start to gain trust in you is because in their brain they start to release oxytocin. It's the cuddle hormone. It's the one that makes them like you and trust you. And that's why empathy is such a powerful tool. And that's why I ask so many questions. And that's why I sit and I listen to patients instead of talking at them. Because remember, if their shield's up, your words are just going to bounce right off of their shields. I got to get the shields down first before I can put the information in. And that shields down is getting them to trust you. It's using empathy. And you can kind of see this oxytocin when it happens. They go from, a scrunched up face to a more relaxed face because the oxytocin has a physical manifestation as well. So I never start talking about dentistry until I start seeing the face relax and the patient relax, because I know at that point they're starting to trust me. The shield has come down. So, and at that point, maybe the patient will start to share with me what their objection is. Man, doc, that sounds scary. It sounds painful. Well, you're right. It is scary. You validate their concern. Man, doc, that sounds expensive. Well, you're right. It can be expensive. But then, because these patients, their objections, they're somewhat based in reality, right? Dentistry is expensive and it can be scary. So validate their objections. But then when you go to eliminate their objection, you use that what if scenario. Well, what if we could use sedation dentistry? Would that work? Or what if I could break this up into sections or break it up into payments? Would that work for you? Again, we're trying to listen to their perspective and then make the dentistry fit into it. And that's using tactical empathy to get the patient's brain to release oxytocin. I call them the happiness fireworks. I see the happiness fireworks go off in their brains, and then they start to relax a little bit. And then you're gonna get a lot more case acceptance when it comes to patients saying yes to their dentistry. So I've always had this saying, patients don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's really what tactical empathy is showing the patient that you care. You care about them. You're listening to their perspective. You already know the dentistry that they need. We just have to find a way to fit it into their lives, not getting them to fit into our shoes. So in any case, this is just the beginning of building trust. I got a lot more videos on it and a lot more videos on patient communication, so stick around. So in any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, here's my contact information, and I'll see you on the next one. I'll talk to you soon. Bye. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like it, go to ownitdental.com or click the link above and check out my services. I have dozens of hours of training videos and have negotiated reduced lab fees for all my clients. So if you want to get out of the dental chair and start owning your business, go to ownitdental.com and check out my services, and I'll see you soon.